The following program is available in high definition on Channel 700. This program is designed and produced by the community with the support of TV Cogeco.
Hello, welcome to this episode of Council Matters. The reason Council matters is that the Municipal Act says that all municipal power is exercised only by Council by resolution. And that means that as Mayor, I work for Council, and we, the Council and I, we work for you. Today, we're talking about the cultural hub work that the town, at Council's direction, is undertaking with respect to the cultural facilities in Downtown Oakville. The cultural facilities in Downtown Oakville were built a long time ago, and they've reached the end of their life. We have to face the question of what we're going to do with them, and this is a pretty big moment in our history because it's kind of like setting the course for the next 50 years. With me today to discuss where we shall go on that course is Doug McKirgan, who is the Secretary of the Trafalgar Chartwell Residents Association and a member of the Oakville Arts Society. Don Pangman, who is the founder and artistic director of ArtHouse, a performance-oriented group that we'll hear more about in a second, and Glenn Piotrowski, who is the chair of strategic planning for the Oakville Galleries. And gentlemen, thank you for joining us. I wonder, Don, if you'd allow me to start by pointing out that in a way, you were one of the impetuses to get this work going when several years ago, when you were leading the Oakville Symphony, you started pitching the idea of a new revival of our building down there. What's prompted you to do that?
I think having had the benefit of knowing some pretty influential people in North America, one who came as a planning consultant to the town about 10, 12 years ago, Andres Duaney, who made a comment about downtown Oakville. It was probably one of the finest settings that he'd ever seen anywhere in North America. And then later on, a friend, Tom Payne, who was with Kubera Payne, who came out and visited Oakville, and also coincidentally a roommate of Andres Duaney during his university years, said that we are a vibrant hub that's far enough away from Toronto and Hamilton to bring the arts in a very serious way. And that is something that has resonated with me. We need to revitalize our buildings, our performing arts space. We need to understand today that the 21st century is a story about all of the arts coming together, and so importantly, the Oakville Galleries may play a role in that too. So I look at all of that and say, we have an opportunity to bring all of our local arts groups together, to bring some of the highest end arts groups and performing arts groups from around the world to Oakville. Others have done it in communities not too far away from us. It's our turn now.
So in a sense, we have competition in the area of the arts, and if we're going to attract people to our downtown, the arts might be a pretty good attraction.
Absolutely, and I think there's a trade-off. When you bring high-end arts groups and performing arts groups in from other parts of the world, you can charge bigger prices, and I think that's going to help to subsidize some of the grassroots organizations in our community, and they're very important, and they're growing and thriving.
So Glenn, why does the galleries want to get in on the downtown cultural hub as much as you do?
Firstly, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I must say that the galleries look at this as a tremendous opportunity from the standpoint of being able to consolidate the gallery into one particular location, to increase the identity of it, and to give us an opportunity to become a Class A facility. Becoming Class A will allow that, in fact, we can start to accept cultural property, so that currently we have to turn it away. to be part of the downtown core will only increase the vibrance in our mind as to just how people see the downtown. So from our standpoint, this is an incredible opportunity, one which in fact allows us to not only showcase all the art that we currently have, but also be able to bring in additional pieces.
Doug, the Arts Society uses the existing small gallery at the library every year for the auction, which is always a lot of fun. And I've bought several pieces there, sometimes even without prompting from my wife. What is the Arts Society view of the cultural hub work?
We're excited. We see it as an opportunity to expand our reach into downtown Oakville. The only activity we have with downtown Oakville at the moment is the annual art auction in the library, in Central Library. We have in the last few years been trying very hard to engage with other cultural groups in the community and end our isolation. So we're just really pleased to see the whole initiative. So we want to be participants.
Well, the Arts Society is unique in my mind because it's so old, it's generations old, and it's so self-reliant. I mean, it's the most self-supporting group in the arts that we have, as far as I know.
As far as I know as well, yes. Yeah.
Now, what about, I mean, you live within walking distance of the downtown, I'm pretty sure I can safely say. Yeah. What, as a resident, and I'd like you to speak about your neighbors as well, you don't have to name them though, but you know, what are the residents hoping to get out of the cultural hub work?
Speaking just for myself as a resident, I really value downtown Oakville. I go there every day, walk there. I do a lot of shopping there, not for staples, but for premium quality stuff, and I like spending time there. So the more attractions there are in the form of cultural facilities, the better. So all of the things that have been talked about, access to the waterfront, small public spaces for pop-up entertainment, a revitalized performing arts center, the Artists in Residence program that has been floated as an idea. All of these things are just will add to the attraction of downtown and help preserve it. It's important to me that it's preserved, that the commerce is sustainable and successful, because it enriches my life, helps my property values.
That's not a bad point. I can tell you that council and I share a commitment to keeping the downtown alive, well, and healthy. We see it as a core piece of Oakville's identity. Don, when you first pitched the idea to me 4 or 5 years ago of looking at the time to renew the downtown cultural facilities, one of your goals was a proper concert hall. And I think the idea was that there'd be a theater type of hall as well as a concert hall. As you track the work that staff are doing with the consultants and the public consultation, and we've now published a bunch of that work on the website, how do you feel about the way it's going?
I think it's going really, really well. I think the consultants that have been hired by the town are exceptional. I think the town staff has done a great job of embracing the community, and I think the messaging is coming into a funnel that is giving us some really good conclusions, hopefully, that the community will embrace as well. It comes down to what we have today, which is inaccessible and needs to be dealt with, and that could be extremely extremely costly. In our 5 years of work, we've talked not only to groups that are acoustically oriented, but we've talked to some of the drama groups. It seems to me that the Oakville Centre is weak with just the projection of voice from the stage without a mic. And that's really important when you go back to my earlier comment about how vital it is to attract high-end groups from around the world. No drama group, no musical group is going to look at the Oakville Centre the same way they might look at a Kerner Hall or some of the other theaters that have been built in the last 5 years. It's important also to attract people downtown who have an experience at this new, hopeful, revitalized performing arts theater, because they'll stay downtown, they'll spend money downtown. We need activity on the creek. We've got this incredibly beautiful creek with no restaurants on it. So there's a multitude of benefits to building something really good. And to your question, I think there can be a blend. There could be what the consultants are saying, two different types of theaters. One higher end, one that is going to attract maybe more for the groups that will be speaking the spoken word from the stage and probably don't need the concert hall effect.
Okay. So the drawing or painting, I don't know what you call it, a color drawing that Tom Payne did for you as a conversation starter has led to some interesting issues for me as a mayor. Cynical people are saying, well, the fix is in for the Daniels people because they had something to do with coming up with this thing. And this, I hear, even though everything we've built 800,000 square feet of new facilities in our community, and every one of them has been an open design-build competition in order to get the best possible result, in order to have the talent of the world compete. I'd just like you to confirm that it's only a sketch.
It's totally only a sketch, and I think the talent of the world gave hundreds of hours of their time to help us bring this vision to the community up to 5 years ago, as you mentioned. So Daniels was represented by one of our very strong residents, Tom Dutton, who has a passion and interest not only in what's going on in this town, but is also very involved, has been very involved with the Oakville Galleries. Tom Payne, what a coup to have an architect from one of the firms that represented 9 of the 12 Renaissance projects in Toronto over the last 12 years, to have him come into our community and give his vote of approval for something that we really do need in downtown Oakville.
Yes, I guess if you'll permit me, I'll say you have an amazing cast of friends, and boy, do you exploit your friends. Well, Glenn, in your other life outside of the galleries, I know you to be a very distinguished architect, and one of the issues Don mentioned with our existing cultural facilities is the whole question of accessibility. We now have accessibility laws, and we have lots of issues in the existing Performing Arts Center. In the day, in order to build it, the town spent, I think, 10 years arguing about it. And in the end, to make the budget work, they left out the balcony, they left out the elevator, they left out all kinds of things. Can you speak a little bit outside of the gallery space to this question of accessibility and how we've got to adjust to the new reality?
Certainly, from the standpoint of the process that everyone is going through to ensure that, in fact, each of the stakeholders have clearly defined what their requirements are, and then to try to ensure that it fits in relation to the overall town context. I think that the vision that is being put forward is excellent. I think that the consultants are taking their time to consider each of the requirements from the perspective of involving all parties to recognize that we have got a very healthy downtown core in our mind, primarily as a result of the interrelationship between residential and the downtown. Whether it's shops, whether it's the current cultural facilities, we've got a very, very vibrant opportunity that we can only strengthen. So from the standpoint of being to be all-inclusive, we just have to build on the very strong foundation that we currently have. And so that the mechanics of that can be solved very easily. Frankly, we've got a tremendous opportunity, recognizing that we've got the natural attributes of such things as 16 Mile Creek, the waterfront that we can pull together or into it, just to look at it from the perspective of inside and outside spaces, to know that in fact we can have the flow that relates to people, point of arrival, going in to the various facilities, to be able to enjoy the outside zones. The massing of this could be very interesting given the opportunities that we've got with respect to the particular site. From the standpoint of all-inclusiveness, it will be easy to incorporate a facility that will accommodate all.
I'd like to take a couple of extra minutes to talk to each of you from an artistic programming and animation perspective. No matter what the final design competition will produce for us, each of you has through this process become aware of the retail consultants who are telling the businesses and us that there needs to be more street-level animation. And I'm wondering, performing arts, it seems obvious to me that we could animate our streets more in that way. But what about the visual arts? Could we not have a constantly changing set of street art? And can we think of ways? And what Glenn, you're working on strategic planning for the galleries. Are you already thinking around concepts like how bringing art out to the street, out to the people, as opposed to only having it indoors?
Most definitely. And frankly, in fact, the downtown core as a whole might be our gallery. And so that there isn't any reason that we couldn't have art in the park, as an example. Not necessarily with an ever-changing streetscape. It might very well be that, in fact, there are permanent installations that might exist. So there's a real destination point that we've got. Once again, in fact, I think that it can only be strengthened. I think that we continue to have private entrepreneurs that continue to enhance the downtown core. And so that, in fact, we could encourage them to similarly embrace the idea of having a more artistic flair.
So we could have a much more exciting and attractive downtown if we only apply ourselves. I want to thank you for what you've contributed to it through the process and today. And I want to thank you for joining us for this conversation. In just a second, I'll be back with 3 members of council, and we will consider where we are with this project and where we can go. Welcome to this episode of Council Matters. We call it Council Matters because the Municipal Act provides that all municipal power is exercised only by council by resolution. I'm glad as mayor to be a member of council, but I'm always cognizant that I've only got 1 vote. With me today to discuss the matters that we've heard just a moment ago from the people who are involved in the Cultural Hub study are 3 members of council. Councillor Dave Gittings, who is the representative on Town Council for the southeast part of Oakville. Councillor Cathy Duddeck, who is the member of Oakville and Regional Council for the south central part of town. And Councillor Tom Adams, who is the town and regional councillor for the northeast part of town. When we were talking about the Cultural Hub with the 3 folks, I wonder what you were thinking in terms of where we're going and all that you've heard. I mean, all of you are very diligent councillors. I know you're up to your elbows in this. What are you hearing and what are you thinking about it? Dave?
Feedback has been incredible. We've had a lot of public meetings, we've had a lot of stakeholder engagement, and I receive calls daily from people that are for the project, that aren't convinced of the need of the project, they're concerned about the finances of the project. So I guess in great Oakville fashion, we're reaching out and we're receiving an awful lot of feedback.
Cathy?
Similar to what David mentioned, I've received both pro and con. There would appear to be a confusion as to what the role QE Park plays in relation to what we're proposing in this area. I thought it was interesting that mentioned in the previous segment, someone captured the fact that we don't have a waterfront restaurant anymore. It's more than just the arts and the culture. There's the library. There's other things that we're trying to provide to our downtown core in providing something such as this.
Tom, what about your area?
I think there's really three main things that we've been hearing, that I've been hearing, and one is the need for renewal in the first place. And clearly, the square and the facilities were built at a time when Oakville was a lot smaller, and that building and those facilities no longer meet the needs of a much larger community that we've become. So we do need to do that. We do need to update them. Forget about making them bigger or stronger. In the northern area, there is some demand for a northern cultural piece of the pie. So that's one of the pieces that I've been hearing as well. And I think the third piece that I think everybody's been hearing is, what about the financing of this? And this town has had a long history now of building community facilities. We've gone through building sports facilities. We've built the soccer building up in Pine Glen. We've got the 16-mile sports building. We've been doing renewal work on the arenas. So that we've been doing that. And as we went through each of those, we didn't necessarily have all the financing prepared and ready right then and there. We didn't always know exactly what the price tag was going to be. We knew approximately how big it was going to be, but we built a plan around those things. And we did the same thing with the hospital financing plan. We knew it was going to be big, and we went through that process building a finance plan for it, and we've done that. And I think the cultural piece of it, we know approximately how big it is. We don't know precisely how much, but we know the range. And I think we're in a position where as we go forward, we can build the pieces of the finance pie to match it. We've got the ability, I think, with a cultural facility to bring in donations and have a public campaign for financing part of it, possibly. We've got the ability to ask for provincial and federal monies for cultural facilities, which I think is a lot harder to do in other types of facilities. You can't do that with local roads, for example. It's much harder to do. So there are other ways of providing financing, as well as finally going down to the capital levies that we've got and financing like that. So there's a variety of sources of revenue that we can use, and I think as we figure out how big it's going to be, we'll be able to work through that.
Now, I know as budget chair, you have often told us that the replacement of our infrastructure is fully provided for in our long-range finance, that we're a fully funded capital replacement city that calls itself a town and feels like a village.
Good recovery.
And that's my recovery. Now, if we're truly fully financed for renewal of our infrastructure, that would include the Performing Arts Center. And despite all that construction that you mentioned, and despite the $800 million capital budget that we have over the next 10 years, we've still managed to change the direction of the annual increase in the property tax levy. For 18 years, it averaged an increase of 12%, and 12 years ago, the 4 years beginning 12 years ago, it averaged 7% a year. The first 4 years, the 4 years of the last term of council, it averaged 5%. This term of council, it's averaged 3%. 7.53 is a much nicer direction than 12 every year. I mention all that because for a second there you were frightening me with how much, where's the money going to come from? And I wanted to point out that we've delivered real solid results in terms of controlling our finances. What was our property tax increase this year?
Our overall was a 0.83%, and amongst our GTA comparators nearby, that's the lowest around here. It's also the lowest in Oakville in 15 years. So we're in a very strong position. I should also point out that we've been lowering our tax-supported debt, which is over the last few years has gone down from about 24 million down to about 10 million by the end of this year. So we're in a very good financial position. Our reserves are strong. So that's why I say when it comes to this kind of large project, we're looking at a library facility, or looking at a theater facility, or looking at pool and recreation facilities. That's part of it as well. We're talking about a gallery. We're talking about a large number of facilities, and we're still working through how big those things will be, where are they going to move from, what are we going to do with the old assets, how are we going to extract funding and financing from those things. So the question is, what is the net cost going to be? And we're in a very good position to finance those things once we've figured out what the community wants.
That's the way we like to hear the budget chair talk, right? So, Dave, in a way, the residents of Ward 3, your area, they're the closest to the downtown. What are you hearing from your residents on the plus side, on the negative side, and really more importantly, what are they hoping to see? Do they want to keep the main library in downtown, for example? Do they want to keep the Performing Arts Center in downtown, for example? What's the sense of your community? You heard the councillor from the north say he'd be glad to have them up there.
Well, I'm sure he would. In terms of the library, whether it's the main library or not, we need a branch downtown. It's a way for people to come down. There are some incredible programs, family programs that are held there. The swimming pool will be moving to the new community center for Southeast Oakville. And so it's important for them to have that. And for the concert hall, whatever area, whatever that will look like, I think it's important to have it downtown, near the shops, near the restaurants, on the water. It's a destination that we see time and time again, not just from residents from Ward 3, because it belongs to all of Oakville and people from outside of Oakville. It's a wonderful destination.
So, Cathy, I know that your ward flanks the downtown. Mm-hmm. One of the issues that our council's worked with over the last 8 years is how do we make sure that the Oakville identity, which is rooted in the 16 Mile Creek Harbor, mm-hmm. how do we make sure that that's strong and vibrant? Mm-hmm. Are your residents in tune with that? Are they let it go? Who cares?
No, well, as I mentioned earlier, there's been for and against. I'd say an overwhelming support. There have been people who have expressed reasons for those cited previously, whether it's financial, not understanding the rationale from changing a pool from, say, Centennial to the old Oakville Hospital lands, need for a community center there. Some of it is just understanding everything and how it's going to come together. The one aspect I must say that people on the west side of the creek have long expressed is a continued streetscape along Lakeshore, and they'd like to see an enhanced streetscape continue farther than the bridge, and whether that's part of this segment or in the near future, consideration needs to be given to that.
Certainly, in my 20 years in Oakville, I've seen that very stretch grow and improve quite a lot already.
Very much so. And I think this would be the next step in that evolution.
Good. Well, I want to thank you for spending time with us today, listening to the people who are involved actively in the cultural hub work, as well as hearing the councillors' preliminary reaction to that work. I want to ask each of you to get involved. We like to make decisions that suit the maximum number of people in this town. We like to make decisions that stand on their own 2 feet. Those decisions are best made by people getting involved across all sectors of society, all parts of town. And this is a council that really believes in public input. Council matters, but council knows that the public matters too. Thank you for being with us today.